Welcome to Action Research in the Classroom, EDU 5120. I'm Christy Ziegler. I will be your instructor for the course, and I'm very excited to be working with you this term. Action Research is one of my favorite courses to teach because we are focused on improving practice, which ultimately will improve learning conditions for students. So it's always a great class to see what kind of topics students want to tackle in their own classrooms to ultimately improve practice. So we're on a growth target for this course. We are about continuous improvement, and what's really neat about Action Research is it can be a culmination of what you've been learning throughout your coursework in the master's degree program. It's really honing in on educational practices and existing research base and taking the time to actually apply what you've been learning in your coursework as a reflective practitioner to, again, ultimately improve the learning for your students. So I'm excited to embark on this journey with you. I'll give you a little bit of background about me. This is my 11th year of teaching Action Research, and again, I shared it's one of my favorite classes. I learned so much through each course because I get to learn along with you with the topics that you choose and the research base that you review in really honing in on your project and what you want to change in your own practice. So I really enjoy the collaborative aspect of developing the projects with you. This is one of those courses that can be a little bit daunting for people, but once you get into the first couple of weeks of the class, I think you will enjoy it, and I think you'll be able to take a breath and realize everything that we do is directly applied and impacting your learners. So again, it's highly relevant, and when there's relevance, we tend to have a higher degree of connection point and enjoyment with the topics. During the daytime, I do work within a metropolitan Kansas City school district, and I serve as an assistant superintendent for innovation. And I work with signature program classes that are targeting career and college readiness in very unique ways. So I am a practitioner. I do stay involved. I'm working with kids every day. I'm working with teachers every day, and I get to join this journey with you as you develop your projects. This week, I'd like to get to know a little bit more about you. Sometimes when I'm teaching, I am working with cohorts of folks that have been together for their entire degree program, so you may know each other, but I'd like to get to know you and where you come from a little bit better. So I'm going to ask you to log into Moodle and update your Moodle profile. If you have not done that before, and I've already checked, there's a number that already have. There's a very brief information, but you should be able to see your picture when you log into the Moodle course shell. Your picture is usually up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and when you drop that down, you'll see profile, and there's some abilities to go in and update your profile. But I'd like for you to share just a general number of years you've been teaching, your background and the position that you teach in, whether you're teaching third graders or whether you're a physical education teacher, or maybe I've had aspiring administrators that are in assistant principal or intern positions. Tell me a little bit about where you're coming from in your current position, because that'll help me help you guide your research development as we hone in and focus on the topic you're going to study. I'd like to know where you're coming from in terms of your school and district if you are currently teaching. If not, I occasionally have a few people that are in the course that are staying home with children, or life has taken them to another area of the country in an unexpected move. Please let me know if you do not currently have a classroom, because that is something we need to problem solve through early on in the course, because Action Research is linked to your classroom ability to implement the project and collect data through your own reflection of practice. We can work through that, but if that pertains to you, that specific situation, contact me immediately so that we can start working through a plan. I'd also like to know hobbies or things you enjoy doing outside of education. I truly do value getting to know students, and sometimes people ask me, how do you do that in an online course format? And you would be surprised at how well I will get to know each of you, and you will get to know me, because we will do a lot of individual support and guidance on a lot of drafts that you'll be submitting every week throughout the course to make sure that you're staying on target for your final project at the end of the 7 weeks. So keep me posted. I would love to know more about you, so please do go in and complete the update of your Moodle profile, and that is one of the required activities this week, so I will assign participation in the gradebook on Moodle for that activity. Please also take some time to review the syllabus. The syllabus is currently posted in the Moodle shell at the top in the general course information. Our course resource is the 5th edition of Craig Mertler's Action Research, Improving Schools and Empowering Educators. Mertler is a very, very thorough writer and talks a lot about the action research steps that we'll be going through. But I use that as a course resource, so there are a few chapters along the way that we'll be reviewing. This week you are responsible for reading Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 in Mertler, but it is a supporting resource to the screencasts and where we'll go with project development. There are a number of ways I'll support you in each week with the activities. So Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 this week in Mertler, please. And also take some time to review some of the support files, including the screencast for this week that I have posted, this one that you're watching right now. I will always post the slides so that you can review those, or if some people like to annotate those as they're watching the screencast. So I will provide those. And if there's ever anything that you are looking for that you're not seeing that you feel might be supportive, please let me know. I'm very receptive to that. And again, I do my own action research on this course as I continue to look at the feedback and the progression of each week and the assignments turned in. You'll also want to take a look at the weekly instructional topics and assignments that will be posted. I try and post by Sunday afternoon. The latest you'll ever see information posted is usually by 7, 8 o'clock on Sunday evening, but usually I have it done around noon on Sunday for the next week coming up. So that is a little bit about what you will find there in the syllabus information. In the syllabus, you'll also find the course objectives, and those have been recently updated. Let's just take a look at those real quickly. Move this down a little bit. So our course objectives are linked to the professional practice standards that our degree program is aligned to, but just the key ones that we will focus on is your ability to demonstrate an understanding of what action research theory and practice is and relate it to the improvement of your own classroom instruction. Everything ties back to you and your own improvement. You'll be developing knowledge of best practice and instruction through research and current resources. Part of the project that we'll develop in developing your second chapter in action research, the actual project, is you're going to conduct, once you identify the topic you want to focus on, you're going to be assigned to conduct a review of the existing research base. What have others done to tackle the problem? And through that review of the research, you're going to be learning a little bit about how you might structure your research protocol. You know, what kind of intervention might you put in place? And by going out and looking at the existing research base and knowing what those best practices are, that will help you refine what your change in practice might be that you're going to conduct your data and analysis on to determine whether or not you've made an effective change in your own instructional practice to, again, improve student learning. You're going to be examining critically and thinking systematically about effective classroom instruction and the overall environment. It's another piece here. And you'll also be solving problems and making effective changes in your classroom instruction and practice through collaborative conversations with colleagues, PLNs or professional learning networks, and or administrators during the action research project development. One thing that I want you to know is action research is meant to be collaborative. It is a form of professional development. So even though you're enrolled in this online format for the course, I'm going to encourage you as you're trying to identify your research focus to talk with others. One of the things that I'll give you as an activity is go into staff room or go into a professional learning community. Talk with other teachers that are there that know you, that know your kids, that know the instructional expectations of your school or your district. And brainstorm with them. Include them in the process of brainstorming and helping you identify what your focus topic will be for this research. Because ultimately, if you go down the path of implementing a change in your own practice and collecting data and finding that you are making a difference for kids, we don't want that to be an isolated incident. We want others to learn from that as well. And that will be part of the final stages in the project where you're going to be disseminating your information to others. So again, here I want you to focus on that it is collaborative. I want you to have conversations with colleagues. I want you to talk with your building leaders. You may be on evaluation cycle, so this is a great topic and conversation to have and include your building administrator, or if you're at the secondary level, maybe an assistant principal or an instructional coach, and invite them into the process and being a part of the project and even developing that focus question and what that plan will be for the action research. Do not think of this as something that you're going to do by yourself. You're also ultimately going to increase skills in written communication. How I set up this course is, again, to not make it an isolated learning event for you, but to include you so that you have support in this online format, is each week, beginning next week, you will have drafts of your project due. Every week there will be a writing assignment and a draft of the project that ultimately will stair-step you into completing the project within the 7-week window of time. Through that drafting process, I will expect the highest level of writing, but they are drafts. So there will be some give and take on that. I expect you to do your best in turning in those assignments, but please know that each one of you will get individualized edits and feedback from me every week that we go through this course. So your writing will grow. Some of the challenges, and I will say this universally because not everyone is used to writing in a research format. There will be some stretches. So writing in past tense is an example. You'll start the project and you'll want to write it now in present tense. But thinking about by the time we get to the end of the project into week 7 and you're writing that final project to turn in, you will have already completed the identification of your research plan. You will have completed the research-based support for change. You'll have completed the implementation of an actual research protocol and analyze the data. So I'm going to force you to write past tense throughout the entire project, which is a little bit of a weird feeling, especially in these first few weeks as you're developing your ideas. But ultimately, it's so the whole project will flow, and by the time you finish it and you turn it in as a final project, the whole thing should be in past tense. So that's just one example, but there is a great deal of support, again, through the course that I will be providing you. Our course process. So the steps that we will follow in the next few weeks is we will start by developing action research questions. I'm going to give you an activity assignment this week that will get you started in thinking about what questions you would ask in helping you identify where your focus of research will be for the action research project. You'll gather information in relation to the questions. You'll design a plan to assess the current classroom practice as it relates to the question. So that's kind of our research methodology. Then you'll go out and you'll implement a change based on that plan, and you're going to gather the data from that, and we'll walk through how we're going to collect data, how you're going to analyze the data, and ultimately you're going to develop effective practices based upon an action plan. When you get through all of that and you're looking at your data analysis, you're going to determine what change you made, whether or not it was effective, and what your next steps or your future practice will be based on what you now learned about yourself and your students and how they responded to that change. And then you'll distribute your learning to others. I touched on that briefly before when I said this is a collaborative process. This is not meant to be in isolation, but for truly to see action research as professional growth and part of a professional development process, you have to share what you do. You have to share and have those collaborative conversations with others. So you will be determining a plan for how you distribute this out, whether it's sharing in a staff meeting, whether it's presenting in a professional development day in your district. Maybe it's even, I've had students that have taken their projects and presented at a Kansas Exemplary Educators Conference or the KSD conference, or even bigger than that. So ultimately it's about doing what you do and then sharing it with others. Our final course process, just to touch base, class participants work cooperatively in action research teams. So throughout the course, in a few weeks after we get a little bit further down the road of identifying our research topics, I will be looking at what each of you has identified as a focus area, and I will start to put you in teams based on some common interests for your research. There will be some of you that I suspect will want to talk about improving student behaviors in the classroom, so you might be looking at positive behavioral supports as part of your research. There will be some that will want to look at maybe content-specific or instructional-specific strategies, like really doing more to implement cooperative learning practices with more fidelity. So there will be some common strands that start to emerge, and I will assign you into research groups to support each other and kind of learn more about each other's project and provide some peer feedback as another layer of support. So again, we'll develop that cooperation within our class and collaboration opportunities. So lots of opportunities to touch base. Some of the expectations to be successful in this class. Be online, ready to learn several times each week. I use Yoga Whippy. You only get out what you put in, as a good analogy here. I do watch logs, and for the course, so I do watch times and the amount of time placed in Moodle. Please don't wait until 9 o'clock on a Sunday evening to complete your assigned work. If you're waiting until 9 o'clock, you're going to be deficient in some of your learning opportunities. With that said, I have a family. I imagine most of you have families as well, kids. If you have an emergency that comes up, maybe on one of the weeks, maybe you had an illness in the family, or maybe you've had a reason that you're out traveling and you haven't had as much time, just let me know. I understand that family comes first and there are emergency situations that arise. Just send me a quick email. Then again, let me know what's going on with you so that I can help support you as well. Questions are encouraged and supported. I give you my email address. I have given you my cell phone number on the course syllabus and in the course shell. So you've got multiple ways to communicate with me. Each week on Sunday night, Sunday or Monday, you'll get a push email out that basically gives you a quick summary, communication of what we're doing that week ahead, and I'll also give you some touch points on the week that we've just finished and any of the common questions, frequently asked questions that have come up. So again, trying to keep us moving in the right direction and together with support. But if you do have questions or concerns, please contact me. I'm happy to work with you. Student work throughout the course. So developing a working knowledge of action research theory and process through online attendance and participation. That's going to be one of the ways that we're working through this course, is getting in the middle, reviewing the resources every week, talking through and reviewing the screencast, and then participating, reaching out with questions if you've got them. That's one of the ways that we're going to work through the course. You're also going to be gathering information on our research area. So I've posted information this week for an assignment that won't actually be due until the end of our next week, at the end of week 2. And that's getting you kind of primed for that research-based support for change, which will ultimately become your second chapter in the project. So you're going to have an opportunity to go out and look at research, what existing research exists in journals or peer-refereed publications. You're going to look at 2 different research writings that have been published, and each one is worth 20 points. You're just going to write a quick summary of the research. And by a quick summary, I mean a page or less. It's not a multi-page assignment for each one of those. You're going to do 2, and you're going to tell me basically what the researchers did, how they did it, and what they found. What they did, so their research methodology, how they did it, their plan, and what they ultimately found, their results. So that's going to be due in 2 weeks, and there's more information posted in Moodle for that assignment. Those are the abstracts. So if you're curious about an abstract, you can take a look at APA publication format, and that will give you a guide that an abstract is a very, very brief writing. It's not multiple pages. More on that in the Moodle course shell, and we'll get to that again in next week's screencast. And then you also ultimately develop the action research project and presentation, which are 90 points of the course. So those are the key areas for student work and how the assessment is done. That action research project follows a course rubric. That's a common rubric that the instructors of the course have met and developed. And that's also posted in the syllabus. It's the final pages of the syllabus. It is rather extensive, and I will refer you to it as we go each week and as we're working on each of the components of that project. So more to come on that as well. Let's talk now, shifting gears, about your action research project, so you know what the end is, so you can keep the end in mind for where we're headed. The action research project is really just components that are listed on the screen. So we'll be looking at the abstract of the project. That'll ultimately be the last thing that you write, because that abstract, as I just shared on the abstract assignment that you're going to be looking at here in 2 weeks, is really just a summation of what you did, how you did it, and what you found out. So that will be the very first thing that people read on your action research project when we ultimately have it finished. You'll begin with a section talking about the introduction and statement of the problem. Your second section will be the research-based support for change, the second big section, and that's really probably one of the meatier parts of the project, because you're going to cull through the existing research base once you've identified your focus topic, and that research-based support for change will help guide your work. You will ultimately collect 7 research citations, and you will include those into the narrative of the research-based support for change and use those as citations to support why you have selected the topic, why it's important, and why this is important to student learning. You will develop a data collection method, so that's how you're going to go about implementing an intervention and how you're going to collect data, and you will identify 3 different sources. So we'll talk about triangulation of data, 3 legs of a stool, or else the stool falls over. So you're going to have 3 distinct data sources that you're going to use to know whether or not the change you implement made a difference for students. You'll analyze the data, and Mertler in the introduction, chapter 1, talks a little bit about descriptive statistics. Do not panic. I will walk you through what statistics are important to us when we do data analysis, and we're going to be doing basic descriptive statistics for the data analysis. We won't get into things that are too hairy. And then finally, you'll develop a dissemination plan that I've already touched on briefly, but that's how you're going to share this information outside of your classroom based on what you've learned so that it can ultimately be beneficial to others. The Action Research Project rubric, as I've mentioned, is included in the syllabus, and we'll refer to it as we go every week, but it's based on the criteria of unsatisfactory or basic, proficient, and distinguished. So it's a common rubric. And it shouldn't be any surprise as you've been through the Baker program, you'll see those criteria in other courses. So let's get into defining action research. Action research is really studying your problem, studying something that you want to focus on. It's reflective, so it's thinking about your practice and what's really driving you to be better. What's something that you feel like you really need to work on, or maybe it's an area that every year you feel like it's really hard to get students to engage in a certain topic and you want to focus on how do I improve that engagement. So it's something you're going to identify that you want to work on. It's about you. It's not about somebody else defining a problem that we're going to go research. It's a form of professional growth because this is based on reflective practice and continued improvement. It's focusing on improving the quality of your instruction to ultimately improve your student learning, and it's designed to connect research with classroom instruction. So oftentimes there's all of this research that's been studied and data that's collected, and when do we take the time to bring it back and implement it in our own classroom to really see it make a difference for kids? Now's the chance. That's what action research is all about. Other things that it may be known as, and I give you this as a help because as you start looking for existing research base, aside from going into maybe the Collins Library and getting into some of the research databases that are out there, like EBSCO or ProQuest, you also can do some researching, maybe in the ERIC database, looking at keywords like reflective practice, case studies, collaborative action research, proactive action research, responsive action research. Those are all things that you'll start to see as you get into looking at what the existing research base shows and trying to identify maybe some support for what you want to do. What it is not. We are not going to be conducting scientifically based research. Why? Scientifically based research typically studies the problems of others, so it's not personalized to your classroom. And for you to get the ultimate benefit, we want it to be personalized to you. It tends to be clinical. So one of the things that we don't do, and we're not going to do in this class, is identify a situation where we're going to provide a control and then a variable situation. Parents really would not be very happy with us if we withheld something that could be positive and good for their kids just to see if it worked in another area. So that's sometimes why scientific-based research in education is a challenge. That aspect of having a true control situation is very difficult in still honoring the needs of all learners. So scientifically based research, it's not designed to benefit the subjects but the research community. And really we're here about benefiting you and your students. So that's why action research is of benefit to us here and why we're doing it. I'll give you a quick slide. I won't read through all this, but just some of the differences and similarities. I think we've touched on most of this already as I've talked through the course and some of the ways we're going to progress. I'm going to give you a little bit of just to help you think through what you might start to tackle. These are what some common topics have focused on in previous cohorts and classroom teachers. So in developing the Action Research Project, we've had some that have focused on Equity in improving instruction for students that maybe are coming from a second language, English as a second language background. I mentioned behaviors. Positive behavior support has become a really popular topic for research, and that's perfectly fine. When I say popular, a lot of people are focusing on it, and that's okay, because that's truly where they were at and what they wanted to impact, because we know if students are increasing their engagement and we're seeing a downplay in the disruptive behaviors, then we have a better condition to support learning and content knowledge acquisition and application. Teaching strategies or instructional strategies. If there's some new instructional strategies that your district or your school are working on as part of school improvement, now's the time to look at it. Look at it through your own classroom practice, and let's identify some data collection plans and strategies so that we can know whether or not you're ultimately making a difference. And then if not, we can ask the why question and start to maybe redevelop the project. Learning styles. I've had some great research projects that have come through looking at individual student learning styles and customizing some instruction opportunities based on whether or not a student was kinesthetic or auditory or you name it. Increasing relevance and those real-life connections has been another popular topic. Looking at different ways to incorporate assessments, authentic assessments, project-based learning as a topic has come up quite a few times. Increasing student responsibility. I've had some great art projects that have come out of art classrooms that ultimately focused on increasing time to learn by increasing student responsibility for their environment, cleaning up, managing resources, and so forth. And then I've also something to think about. Sometimes when we get into action research, you start thinking about those things that you want to work on. Just by talking about where's the focus of the project. Is it on the entire classroom and looking at the entire classroom and how they respond to a change in your instruction? Or do you have one or two students that are really just struggling to engage or really just struggling to reach levels of success? Action research doesn't have to be about something that we look at the entire classroom. It could be focused on the needs of one or two individual students. So you can think about it that way in terms of these first few weeks as we start thinking about what your focus will be. Think about what your classroom looks like. Think about what are the things that are really challenges to you right now in terms of providing that instruction to your learners, and let that start to be the guide for your thinking as you identify your focus. One of the activities that we'll be completing this week is the right questions activity, and that's really geared at trying to get you to hone in on what questions you might want to focus on for the project. So the right question has only one rule, and that you write down in this activity the questions that you come up with, only questions, not statements. It has to be in the form of a question. So you're going to set a timer for 5 minutes. You're going to brainstorm any question that comes to mind. If it helps you, I've indicated it could be by members of your team. So if you want to take this into a team situation with some of your colleagues at work and have them help you identify the questions, it's kind of a fun activity. It's common practice to use it as part of problem identification when we're working on school improvement as well. So nothing new there, but really use it as a brainstorm time to identify the questions that are really helping you focus on how you might think about your classroom or student learning or behaviors that you see from students in the classroom, your instruction, your assessment practices. Think about what questions you would ask based on what you are dealing with on a day-to-day basis and what you might want to focus on for improvement in your classroom. You're going to take the list of questions that you identify, and I don't want you to wordsmith, I don't want you to pretty them up. I just want you to take your initial brainstorm. It's okay to be messy, and I want you to post that in the discussion forum for the right questions in our Week 1 Moodle shell. And then I want you to go in and look at what questions others are asking. You might start to see some common trends or common thinking across your colleagues in the cohort, but also start to think about, are they solvable questions? Are they measurable? And how would you go about to know whether or not you're making a difference if you were to focus on that topic for research? So again, this is just brainstorming this week, but I do want you, it is part of the activities for attendance this week. I want you to put it in the Moodle shell so we can learn from each other and see what we're thinking. So part of this is log into Moodle, post in the online forum for the right questions, and then go in and take a few minutes to review what others have posted. And provide some suggestions on solvability or additional questions. Like if you see someone that's focused on maybe reading strategies for beginning readers, and you've got some experience that you might be able to lend to that person, maybe you've got maybe more years of practice under your belt, share that information. Hey, have you thought about and then give them some feedback as well through that discussion forum. So it's meant to bring us together. That's pretty much what we're going to focus on this week. Again, we're just kind of starting to get into the action research topic and the problems that we might identify for our own project work. So I've asked you again for this week to go in and update your Moodle profile, introduce yourself, review the screencast, that's part of your assigned work, complete the right questions activity and getting into your own reflective practice of trying to think about what you want to focus on. Review some of the support files. I've given you some brief information on other action research projects that have been completed over the last few years that are good from classrooms. And then read Mertler chapters 1 and 2. That's it for this week. I'm signing off. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me or call me, or you can post in the discussion forum for the week that's in the top section of the course, and I'm happy to respond. Thank you all. I am excited to be on the journey with you. Good luck as we get started identifying the project topics for the semester.